1951, Dr. Margaret Lewis of the Wistar Institute discovered one of the first transplantable tumors, a cell line that could be grown into petri dish or test tube properly. Lung cells that had spontaneously developed in a single C57BL mouse as an epidermoid carcinoma of the lung. It was, in effect, cancer causing a mutation in a living animal. The reason you don't hear about cancers and mutated cancers specifically running rampant is that cancers require a human host or an animal host, number one. Number two, they're specific to the species, so this cannot grow in a human. And number 50, this has nothing to do with any kind of lung cancer in a human or brain cancer, it was brought up as. 1975, September. The University of Virginia published a research study called the Anti-Neoplastic Activity of Cannabinoids Study. Neoplastic activity referring to cancer, growth in tumors, and cannabinoids, products from cannabis products, or hemp, or marijuana. It is purported to have found that the psychoactive marijuana components, delta 8 and 9 CBN, and THC, given orally to mice, reduced these Lewis lung cell tumors in a petri dish where they're normally grown, and in the mice they were taken from. But again, since this is obviously from a specific mouse, it had to be implanted first. Now, I didn't read the entire study. I read its synopsis and reviews of it in their synopsis, because I'm presuming other scientists can review this. And you can do so too. The link is below in the description. But all this is saying is A, pot cures cancer, or B, pot makes it to where tissue transplants fail. So if you're getting a kidney transplant, don't smoke marijuana. They're equally valid. They did not do a control study, as far as I can tell, but maybe they did, of putting the cancer cells in other mice, or did they? They probably did. In fact, I'm sure they did. But even if they didn't, what this only shows is that if you transplant cells that normally can survive in a petri dish, and they have a specific growth rate, and you're able to observe it independently, you could just put one in, you put the mice right next to each other. They could be twins. If you do enough mice this way, you find out that if you give a marijuana product to a certain number of them, they will show that the transplanted cells fail to transplant properly. Failure to thrive. The reason the tumors would shrink is they have cell death. That proves that a transplanted organ or tissue will die. Cancers grow because they keep, dividing and conquering. But this reduces the cancer, a specific cancer in a specific species from a specific genetic line from a single mouse. So we need more studies. 1975 here. Now, in 1974, the Washington Post newspaper reported the preliminary findings without any of this data, which is what people keep citing, and some of their sources said it was brain tumors and a bunch of other things. Which only shows that if you use anything other than the study and its own conclusions and its notation, these were implanted cells, if you don't use the original source, you were lying by definition, because the newspaper said something that wasn't accurate at the time, but maybe they said something good. But while driving his car, Rick Simpson heard a Nova Scotia radio reporter talking up the newspaper article from the Washington Post or someplace else, saying pot cures cancer. That's 1974 and 1975. Again, all this shows is that if you transplant tissue, you can kill it by using dope. Okay? Cool. But let's talk about Rick Simpson's history here. Up to this point, he's never had cancer. He's never used any of this stuff. From 1974 to 1994, 10 years, No, 20 years later. 70, 80, 90? Yeah. He had a head injury, suffered a concussion while working in the boiler room at the hospital. May have sued for the headaches and ringing in ears and trouble sleeping that he had for many years afterwards. May have done a workers' comp. We don't know. May have had to need to state that he had these problems to keep getting that income. It is Canada. Or not. Prescribed medication to treat this wasn't working. Or he didn't collect disability and he just had miserable time of it, which is very common with a head injury. This is all signs of a head injury. Not brain tumors. That's not what happened here. 1998, 4 years after the injury, he decided to grow medical marijuana since his doctor wouldn't prescribe it. He then started experimenting with using hemp oil that he made from the buds of plants. Now I want to point out the buds of a plant are used primarily because the high concentration will get you high. It's a smaller material size. Leaves and shake, as they call it, isn't as useful and isn't easily packed. And a bud, if it's prepped correctly at the time, would reduce down mechanically to where you could fit it into a specific pipe and use it. Now, I want to point out that people making hemp oil at the time primarily did it so that they could have a very inconspicuous way of consuming the stuff. Not to cure cancer. And if you had it in, if you were smart, if you had it in a format that nobody would pay attention to, you could get away with keeping it on your person. As long as you didn't do something paranoid and stupid. But anyway, this was for a head injury, and, all the problems go with it. I have no doubt that marijuana products would probably help with this. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a problem. And I am against it being regulated the way it is, because it should be regulated on a federal level as being legal so that none of you making stupid lies about its treatment validity can get away with it and you go to prison for lying about pot curing cancer. Now, I'm not saying it should be legal for nice reasons. Actually, I am. I know a lot of people who benefit from it. They go through cancer treatments, easily treated cancers, but they still have to do chemo to make sure it can't come back. The idea is to never get cancer again, to reduce your cancer risk below, if possible, the normal rate. And marijuana makes chemotherapy a whole fuck ton easier. I know it's a difference of night and day. I knew 2 people who went on it midway through chemo, and oh my God, their life was better. But they couldn't smoke it. They had to use the oils and other materials. They had to do other methods. And I'm glad they could take it. But lying about whether it cures cancer killed another friend of mine, so fuck all that shit. Anyway, after he made his own hemp oil, his headaches, arthritis, he developed later, disappeared. The ringing in his ears disappeared. High blood pressure got tolerable, and he slept better. All in a few months. I have no doubt that all that happened. Sure, why not? People saw the difference, and he lost weight and looked 20 years younger. That's him being a salesman. Even though he later claimed it would cure cancer, and only after using hemp oil for several years from 1998 forward. In 2003, he developed skin cancer after using hemp oil. Skin cancer is one of the most easily cured cancers you can get. If you see a sign of any kind of skin cancer, get the damn thing taken out, treat it like it's cancer, get it biopsied, don't even fuck around. Because if you don't treat it early enough, it's one of the most deadly fucking things I can think of. It's really not okay. But he only developed skin cancer after using hemp oil. 2003. He had a facial spot removed and biopsied. But before he could get the biopsy results back, he self-diagnosed himself as also having an infection where the spot had removed. And instead of going to the doctor and getting an antibiotic, or maybe he did and doesn't mention it, he decided to apply his hemp oil onto the infected spot, and it went away. Yeah, hemp oil might actually kill off bacterial infections, not because of the hemp, but because of the material it's suspended in. What kind of hemp oil? What procedure? Look up whether or not it works. Or it could have just cleared up on its own. So far we have antimicrobial, antibacterial effects. He applied cannabis oil to 2 other spots that hadn't been removed, and they were gone in a few days. These were never tested or biopsied. He self-diagnosed that they both had to be cancer because they looked kind of the same, or they were identical. They came back after he applied cannabis anyway, though, so he reapplied it and they went away again. Or they were infections, or they were none of the above, and we'll never know what it is because he never proved it. Later on, providing retroactive proof isn't the same thing as recording it at the time. He said a biopsy confirmed the one removed spot was basal cell skin cancer. He concluded if one spot was cancer, the other two had to be cancerous. And the cannabis had to cure the cancer that he didn't test. They could have been some other thing entirely. He also decided somehow, even though the cure that he got for the original cancer was really the doctor removing it correctly, which is all you have to do, and you almost never have a chance of recurrence. And even though he didn't go apparently to the doctor and get antibiotics, or maybe he did and lied about it, or not. Or maybe that he just went to the doctor and had the cancers removed from everywhere because maybe the doctor thought, let's remove all of them. We don't have any documentation. We don't have medical reports. It had to be the hemp oil. It can't be the doctor removing the only skin cancer I ever had, which is one skin cancer. Which, again, is ridiculously easy to treat, often only requiring excision. And an infection afterwards is not a sign that you're curing anything or that it wasn't cancer or anything like that. It's just a separate issue. He claimed also, coincidentally, his mother's psoriasis, which is, I think that's how you pronounce it. The spelling of it is atrocious. I hate the real spelling for this. He cured it. That's an autoimmune system problem that can be triggered by infections, coincidentally. He also claimed his Phoenix Tears, hemp, THC, etc. cured cancer, diabetes, arthritis, glaucoma, and other diseases, but his product may not be CBN, Delta, 8, and 9, which was what was tested, which is originally cited, which is your original basis for this argument, which is based on marijuana, pot, prevents tissue transplants, and marijuana doesn't prevent cancer in the lungs. Don't know if you know this. The reason you don't get lung cancer as easily from marijuana is because instead of simply damaging your cells in your lungs and allowing them to become cancerous, pot just kills them outright, causes more lung damage, and is not a way to cure cancer. It might actually cure the cancer by killing cancer cells if they're in the direct exposed surface in the lining of your throat, upper respiratory system, the lining of the villi, and the alveoli, not ravioli, in the lung. But unless it's just in contact, it's not going to kill the cells preferentially. It doesn't cure cancer. And millions of potheads that got cancer later on are total proof positive. Pot cures cancer. As of 2012, Journal of National Cancer Institute, Volume 55, Number 3, September 1975 reference to the above study, and many other 1970 cannabis studies indicating the effect of marijuana on animal tumors exists. This led to an experiment on 2 people in 2006, but that's about it as of the 2012 write-up for most of the sources that even bother bringing this up. To review, parlez-vous. A cell line that only attacks mice was tested as a tissue transplant, and it was found that certain components in marijuana will prevent tissue transplants. Or you could say it cures cancer if you wish to, but that doesn't mean you're right. This guy getting cancer after using marijuana bud oil doesn't prove that it cures cancer. Millions of potheads getting cancer even though they smoke marijuana also doesn't prove that marijuana cures cancer. Lying about what effect it has based on bullshit like this is the reason that it should be perfectly legal everywhere in the United States, so the Food and Drug Administration can legally evaluate your bullshit stories and throw you in jail for lying to people and causing people to not just go in and get a cancer treatment. And this guy not acknowledging that a doctor probably kept him from dying from a skin cancer he wasn't even aware he had is a crime against medicine. It doesn't cure cancer. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.